Lesson 3, Automatic Client Deployment. Automatic Client Deployment is a way of maintaining your backup archive client code to the current release. Once you've got TSM installed on your backup archive client and you're running a 5.4 or higher with Windows or 5.5 and higher with non-Windows backup archive clients, you can use Automatic Client Deployment to upgrade your client code. This is a list of the supported platforms. This is your backup archive client supported operating systems. This list is from 2011, so I suggest you go out to the website and verify the latest list. There are some prerequisites for running the automatic client deployment. Your server must be at 6.2.3 or later, and your administration center needs to be at 6.3.0 or later. This is because the server and the administration center are used to set up the automatic client deployment. On the client, you'll need to have CAD services running, you're going to need to have password access set to generate, and you're going to need sufficient disk space. There's a chart underneath the slide in your student guide that shows you the approximate disk space requirements. Now, this disk space is to hold the backup archive client code packages. Using the administration center, the server will contact the FTP site, download the latest versions, store them as an archive package, and schedule their deployment to the backup archive clients. This is a chart of some of the additional requirements by operating system. One thing of note, if you're using Linux, the backup archive client needs to be in the default directory. And this is a flowchart of how to use automatic client updates. First of all, from the administration center, which is at a version 6.3, you're going to acquire the client packages from the FTP site. Next, you're going to make the archive client packages available in a storage pool. You're going to need to define or update a policy and a schedule to deal with your automatic client updates. It's a good idea to have a new policy and schedule just for your client updates. Then you're going to define the nodes for the package deployment. Next, your client is going to retrieve the client package, this is the archive package, and the deployment manager from the server. This is a scheduled operation. Then, on the client, the deployment manager is going to start the process. It will unpack and parse the instructions and run the upgrade. When it has completed, it's going to report back to the server that the deployment has completed. The server will then notify the administration center where you can review the results. So we're going to break this down by component to see what the role is. Your administration center. Remember, the admin center needs to be at 6.3.0 as a minimum. It's going to access the FTP site and import to the server. It will manage your packages, schedule the deployment, and then view the deployment status. On the server side, the server is going to store the installation packages as archive objects, use import to deploy the packages and access the permissions. It's going to manage the retention that you set for the package. And it's going to use a scheduling package distribution with action equals deploy. Then you'll be able to define and query the target client maintenance level for each node. On the backup archive client, the client scheduler, which is running the client acceptor daemon to run the scheduling, you're going to schedule the deployment processing. Next, the deployment manager discovers the current components, performs checks and retrievals if necessary, and will process the installation. If a reboot is required, it will do the reboot. Then the deployment manager uses the client API to send the events back to the server, and this is where you'll review the results in the administration center. The deployment manager also cleans up after the installation, removing the temporary files. We start out by configuring automatic client deployment in the Managed Servers tab of the Administration Center. This starts the Client Auto Deployment wizard. You're going to give it a deployment location. This is where you're going to store your client packages. This is on the server. Import and deploy the packages. Deploy the package policy and summary screens. So this is where you're going to set your archive retention period. This is how long you're going to retain the deployment package. And then on your summary screen, you can see that you've set your device class, your directory, storage media, and policy. When it's time to access the client deployment packages, you're looking at View Client Deployment Packages, and you select what you'd like to have deployed. In our lab environment, the packages are already downloaded for you. You select the client deployment packages that you're going to import. Here you can see our breadcrumb trail over here, so we're at Select Packages. We select the package we're going to deploy. We provide the server and the credentials. This is our administrator ID and password. Then in your preference editor of your backup archive GUI, this is where you let the client determine, yes, you will allow automatic client deployment. Yes, you're going to allow automatic deployment only if a reboot is not required, or no, you don't want to use client deployment. The middle option, yes, if reboot is not required, means that for any update that the client doesn't need to be rebooted, go ahead and do it. Any client update that will require a reboot, don't do it.